Oh, do you have a Band-Aid? Because I scraped my knee when I fell for you. Get it? Because pickup lines. They're pretty annoying. Hiya folks, Fruit Unagi here to talk about things that aggravate and annoy me. And the thing that's coming to my mind today is blaming millennials for pretty much everything. I will admit that certain facts about millennials, trends, statistics can be annoying or concerning. For instance, the one that actually scares me a little bit is how many millennials are okay with both restricting freedom of speech and are in favor of socialism as an economic model. Can't say, especially when you put those two things in conjunction, that isn't really a comforting thought. But, putting that aside, I don't like it when people blame millennials for all the evils, all the ilks, all the ills that are affecting the world. And when it especially, or what I find annoying about that is, it's a lack of responsibility. I think it's actually rather juvenile to blame younger people, people who are your juniors, who you should be teaching, being a good role model for, sharing your wisdom with. You're just pointing a finger at them. You're casting all blame and auspicion onto these folks. And how is that helpful? I mean, it might assuage your own feeling of guilt. It might make you feel better, but as the grown-up, as the elder, you should really own up to it. And I guess the other thing I find distressing about this, because again, if you go too far that other direction, where young people are looking to their older generations, and it's like, all these issues affecting us, it's all your fault. There's nothing we can do about it. And the whole problem that can come with any of that imbalance is we shouldn't be separating ourselves. We shouldn't be going to battle against ourselves intergenerationally. We're not the enemy. We're all human beings, and at least when you think about it this way, we're from the same culture. We live in the same place. What good is it to tear ourselves and each other apart because, well, you're different than me. You have different values or different goals and interests. I mean, yeah, things change. And that can be very scary, especially, I mean, I can only imagine what it'd be like to be twice my age, elderly, and looking back and remembering how things were in my day, and then looking around at TV, at modern media, and nothing is recognizable. The landscape has changed that tremendously that nothing seems the same. And that would be very scary to think that your ways, what was important to you, especially the values, are just being thrown away wholesale, just being tossed out with the bin because they're old. And I guess getting back a little bit more on track, when it comes to blaming millennials, we just need to recognize that our current way of life, with it being so focused on technology, is changing faster and faster. I mean, I don't know this with 100% certainty, and I think whenever you're currently living through it, it probably seems that way all the more so. But I would think that technology is changing culture and values much faster than how rapidly things changed millennia ago. I probably should save that whole side topic for another video. Going off on a rabbit trail, I have problems with that, sorry. So, really, getting back on track. Blaming millennials for everything. The example I actually had in mind is millennials are killing businesses. They're putting industries out of business. Oh, I mean, okay. Why is that happening? Is it because those industries haven't adapted with the times? Is it because they're not cost effective? Is it because they're outdated? They haven't, how to put it, they haven't modernized. They haven't done anything to make themselves appealing, to make themselves useful. I can think of a couple of different businesses that at one point were on the cutting edge. They were on the front lines. They were the front runner. They had a great product, but because they stuck with that single product and didn't change, they didn't modernize, it didn't matter. They weren't useful anymore. 8-bit tapes. Excuse me. They were in direct competition with cassette tapes for a while and VHS. They were all around at one point, and those all went belly up. And, companies like Sony, they didn't stick with VCRs. They didn't get screwed because they put everything in one basket. And one industry that comes to mind that is dying, I'll want to double check. I might include in the description a couple different links with different industries that, in theory, millennials are killing, would be napkins and fabric softener, because they don't use them. And frankly, when it comes to napkins, I would think that would be a good thing, because napkins are basically a form of disposable paper, and if you use a lot of napkins, you're just creating more waste senselessly, because all you have to do is wash your hands instead, which I guess that's another resource where you don't want to be too frivolous with it, but are napkins really that necessary? And in fact, we might almost go, this is somewhat of a prediction, but I think would actually be useful in the long run, is instead of using paper napkins, it would really be better, especially since we have the washing machines, to go with a handkerchief system. Just wipe your hands with a cloth napkin that you can wash when you're done, or a handkerchief. I don't know, that would make more sense to me. And I think fabric softener would be going out of the way because it's so expensive, and if you look online, there are ways to get the same results, but they're basically just kind of a do-yourself home hack. I think people who aren't in tune with the internet and that modern way of thinking might not realize that millennials are doing these things. They are using a form of fabric softener, but they're just doing the hack version because they don't have the money to spare. I think that's something some people don't realize, is millennials aren't rolling in the dough. They're not, living it up, having the good life. This has been a pretty big change from the previous generation, the baby boomers, where millennials, young adults into their 25s, 30s, after college, they're having to live with their parents because they are in college debt. They have student loans. I am not saying that well. They have student loans, and they're up to their eyeballs in debt from college. That wasn't very hard, was it? And they don't have the money to buy their own home, even to rent an apartment, because they'd have to furnish it and the utilities, a lot of expenses, so they can't balance with that expense, especially if they aren't getting that great job that they had in mind when they were going to college. That does happen. But that doesn't mean that, millennials aren't trying to make ends meet. That's not really the point I'm getting at. Basically, millennials are not rolling in dough, and so they can afford these frivolous things that, is it really necessary? Do I need fabric softener? Do I need napkins? No. So, I'm not going to buy it. But anyways, I just get annoyed when people try to blame any negative on other people. it removes all responsibility. It takes away all of your power to do anything. Well, it's not my fault, so I can't do anything about it. Or it's not my fault, somebody else needs to fix it. I don't really care for that. And I guess based on this video, another thing I'll have to talk about is college debt, and that's a whole can of worms. I'll definitely talk about that sometime in the future. But anyways, I'm sure you can relate to... I'm sure the Millennials can relate to me on this one. Other generations, maybe not so much. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, and talk to you later. Fruit and Doggy. And as always, Fruit and Doggy. It's a little better.